The Black Cauldron is a high fantasy novel by Lloyd Alexander, the second of 5 volumes in the Chronicles of Prydain. For 1966 it was a Newbery Honor book, runner-up for the year's Most Distinguished Contribution to American Literature for Children. The story continues the adventures of Taran, the assistant pig keeper, as he joins in a quest to capture the eponymous Magical Cauldron from Arawn Death-Lord. The book provided a title and many elements of plot for the Prydain film, the Disney animated feature The Black Cauldron, released in 1985, and its theatrical sequels, Origins. The series was inspired by Welsh mythology and by the castles, scenery, and language of Wales, which the author experienced during World War II combat intelligence training. At one stage of planning it was a trilogy with titles The Battle of the Trees, The Lion with the Steady Hand, and Little Gwion. Plot: the story opens at Caer Dallben, where Dallben the Enchantwen Col, the farmer and retired warrior, have raised the orphan Taran from infancy. It is early autumn, more than a year after the defeat of Arawn's army and death of his warlord the Horned King, which ended the Book of 3. Taran has returned more or less contentedly to farming and studying under the tutelage of his mentors. However, weightier matters are afoot. Prince Gwydion has called allies to a council hosted by Dallben. Men are disappearing, and more of the undead Cauldron-born have joined the forces of Arawn the Death-Lord. Evidently the Black Cauldron is active. Gwydion proposes to capture it. King Morgant of the Kingdom of Magic will lead the main force in an attack on Annavon after a smaller raiding party led by Gwydion has broken off to enter by a mountain pass known only to Col. If all goes as planned, Gwydion's party will slip into Arawn's stronghold and steal the cauldron without being detected. 3 men have been designated to remain behind with pack animals to serve as a rearguard and secure the retreat. Arawn, the warrior son of Chief Bard Taliesin, Taran, and Lydia, Prince of Penlarcow, who is arrogant, wiry, strong, and threadbare. Lydia disdains Taran for his place on the farm and his unknown parentage. Taran envies Lydia for his noble birth, despite Dallben's counsel that the youngest son of a minor king has only his name and his sword. Both are dismayed to share a role with no chance for glory. Leaving aside the feud between the two youths, all goes smoothly until Gwydion's raiders find that the cauldron has disappeared. That company rejoins the rearguard in haste because the huntsmen of Annavon have been deployed. Meanwhile, the uninvited Princess Elenwy and man-beast Gurgi have caught up with the quest from behind. Gwydion and Col are split off from the party, but, thanks to Dolly of the Fairfolk, all others find refuge underground in a Fairfolk waypost maintained by Gwistel. From Gwistel and his pet Crocoy, they learn that the cauldron has been stolen by the 3 witches Ordu, Orwen and Orgot, who reside in the bleak marshes of Morva. When they depart the waypost, Lydia rides southward, determined to retrieve the cauldron single-handedly. With the huntsman abroad, Arawn leads the others in pursuit: Taran, Elenwy, Gurgi, Dolly, and the wandering bard Fludeflam. When they are attacked and scattered, Arawn is mortally wounded and Taran inherits his brooch, whose gift and burden is prophetic dreams and visions. With its guidance, he gathers and leads all but Dolly toward the marshes. From the fringe he both guides his small party through the marshes to temporary safety and leads a pursuing band of huntsmen to their deaths. Ordu and her sisters explain that Arawn once paid them a great price to borrow the cauldron. They retrieved it only when he held it beyond the agreed-upon time. In the way, they welcome friends of Little Dallben, but they refuse to give up the cauldron unless they accept the offer in exchange for something of equivalent value. Thus, they refuse the offer of Gurgi's wallet with its inexhaustible supply of food, Elenwy's magical bauble, or Flude's falsehood-detecting harp. Having had the offer of his sword and horse refused, Taran is compelled to batter the brooch of Arawn. The companions then try to destroy their cauldron but learn from the witches that can be achieved only by a living person who knowingly and willingly climbs in to die. Horrified, the questers resolve to take the cauldron to Dalburn to seek an alternative solution. At the ford of the River Tevin, the heavy and cumbersome cauldron sinks into the riverbed. Lydia arrives and offers to help extricate the cauldron if the others will credit him for the whole enterprise. Taran agrees, yet Lydia rides off with the cauldron alone when they have freed it. Soon the companions meet the army of Morgant, who welcomes them. Unfortunately, he is a traitor. In Morgant's camp they see Lydia beaten and bound, and the cauldron waiting to generate Morgant's own undead legion. He offers to spare the companions' lives if Taran will enter personal service. Later, Dolly arrives invisibly and cuts everyone's bonds. Lydia determines to rush the cauldron and make the sacrifice himself. Although wounded, he is able to force himself into the opening and the cauldron shatters. Gwydion, King Smord, and his army defeat Morgant in battle. The story closes as Taran, Elenwy, and Gurgi take leave of Gwydion at the verge of Caer Dalburn. Adaptations. The Black Cauldron was loosely adapted by Walt Disney Productions and released in 1985 as Disney's 25th animated feature film. The Black Cauldron film was based primarily on the first two Prydain novels with elements from the others. It was the last Disney film produced before corporate reorganization created Walt Disney Feature Animation as a separate division within the company, and the first to be rated PG rather than G in the United States by the MPAA. Disney's adaptation of The Black Cauldron was a commercial failure whose gross receipts did not match production cost. Lloyd Alexander's reaction was twofold. First, I have to say, there is no resemblance between the movie and the book. Having said that, the movie in itself, purely as a movie, I found to be very enjoyable. The movie inspired a 1986 computer video game with the same title.